Hello, I'm Jennifer Martin. I'm President of the Royal Australasian College of Physicians. And today I'm really delighted to be interviewing a colleague, a physician colleague, Associate Professor Kudzai Kanhutu, about some of the changes that we're seeing in our workforce plans and our international strategy across the college. So welcome, Kudzai. Thank you so much for agreeing to come today. Some of the issues that people have been interested in from our membership base are really what are we actually doing about workforce across the whole college, and what are the specific priorities that you have for dealing with some of the workforce issues that we've currently got across Australia and New Zealand?
I think it's fair to say that workforce is one of those topics that comes up everywhere and everybody has some stake to play in it. So I think traditionally the college didn't engage a great deal in workforce-specific matters, and that was really on the basis that it potentially veered too closely into industrial relations matters. But now that we're seeing the huge number of instances of burnout and real challenges in terms of budgets and how things are playing out in people's workplaces, it's really important that the college has now made a really strong and proactive commitment to engaging with workforce front on. So if I think about the topics or the issues that have been coming up a lot of it is just the working environment, the pressures and the strains that people have to juggle often really multiple roles. So it's no longer a case of we're meeting people who just have a single role. You meet directors of physician education, supervisors who are straddling multiple roles on top of other commitments that they have outside of work. So that's that understanding of how people are working in their environments and how the college intersects with that. Exams come up as well, and that also takes place in the working environment.
One of the issues that is raised to me about workforce, and it seems slightly peripheral to workforce, but I think it's actually really key, is well-being. And people say to me, what is the college actually doing about our well-being?
We often know that the strains that people are feeling or that are preventing them from being well come from multiple directions. So it's firstly been a really close look at what are we potentially contributing as a college as far as actually making people not as well as they could be. And in that respect, it's really great to see that the college has moved ahead, and I'm sure Inam would have spoken about this with the examinations review, because we know that that is a necessary step for professional progression, but are we doing it in the right way and in a way that actually allows us to maintain that balance of rigour but doesn't introduce unintended harms as people are working towards their final professional destination? We also have a wellbeing strategy that is looking at what are some other supports that we could provide, whether that is coaching or other resources that may help people to actually be able to manage themselves in their very different contexts as well. Because I've found that I'm always amazed at how the variety in the ways that people are working. You have people who are working purely clinically, you have people who are straddling academic roles as well, or just completely unexpected consultancy roles, and it's understanding how do we provide a wraparound that makes sure that they know that the college is actually there with them and trying to understand. So we often have feedback from supervisors, for example, who say, look, there's that real need for protected time. How do we achieve that? And we're looking at, how does accreditation potentially support that feedback loop of, you said, it was really hard to manage X number of trainees with this supervisor, allocation. How do we advocate for that to be really explicit so that you can then have that conversation in your workplace to support you to work better? So there is a lot, and I think underpinning it is the data piece, and that's something that we're really working on, is to understand, how many physicians and paediatricians are there, where are they, and what does it look like if we're partnering with government to get a sense of, well, if we're to achieve balance, it's always good to have numbers behind that and to understand how we achieve that right equilibrium out in community so people can work and not be the lonely only, managing huge numbers of patients in isolation.
Yes, I think that data piece is really key, because it is difficult, isn't it, to try and make policy for the college if we don't really know what our workforce looks like now and what it's going to look like in the future. So I think members will be pretty happy to hear that you are collecting data, and I know that will be helped by our digital shift as well, because actually that will provide information, I think, that has been very difficult for us to get in the past. So well done on that. One of the other issues that people are becoming increasingly aware of is the external political agenda or political lens that's been placed on workforce around Australia in particular, but also Australia and New Zealand, and looking at where there might be either substitute roles for current physician scope of practice, or whether we might be able to have international medical graduates, specialist IMGs, that can come in and fill some of those gaps in the workforce. Where do you think the college should be in terms of being on the front foot for a workforce advocacy agenda, particularly around physicians?
Look, I think it's fair to say whenever there are gaps in service delivery in community, any government is going to look for ways to fill them. So I think it's to be expected that people are now looking at role substitution, and that is coming in many ways. So is it reaching into allied health? Is it reaching into physician assistants or physician associates? And that conversation has played out to often with catastrophic consequence in other countries as well. So we're certainly observing that and seeing how that conversation is playing out. But it is a really missed opportunity if we as the college don't articulate our strengths in contributing to that conversation and making sure that people who are part of our membership know that still are seen as having real value, and making that distinction between what does a physician do relative to a physician associate, and how would, what is the desired outcome. If you intend to bring in a new workforce, let's think about what is the value add. Does it actually improve care, or does it just complicate things horribly and potentially create a situation where you have role substitution where it's either unsafe for the person who's been asked to do that task, and worse yet, unsafe for the recipients of that care.
You're not just a practicing physician as well as all of this, but you've also got interests in global health. Would you like to talk about any of that and how you see those links and collaborations you've already got out there might actually lead into some of this workforce discussion that we're having?
If I think about my field of practice, so I'm an infectious diseases physician, as you know, and of all of the specialties, I'm not bigging up my own specialty, but it's by default global. Like, you can't escape it. We just survived COVID, or some people might argue we didn't survive it, but here we are. So it is really embedded in the work that I do, that deep understanding of inequity anywhere translates to inequity everywhere. And if we don't really look at ourselves as members of a global community, we'll never achieve the outcome of whole of planet well-being. So where I used to imagine I'd be working, I was one of these, I'm going to be on a mission somewhere with MSF or Red Cross, and I'll be gone for years, and I'll be in the trenches.
I was going to do that.
It never happened. Like, it doesn't. Life takes over, and then here you find yourself, here you are. So what I managed to do, and was really fortunate to be introduced to, was the world of refugee and migrant health. So one of my jobs is I'm at a community bulk billing community clinic that looks after recently arrived refugees and migrants. And obviously no one's always recently arrived, so some people have been here for 30 years plus, and that's fine, because that refugee and migrant transition journey is a long one. It has a long legacy, and I really love seeing how that transition to a relatively well-resourced setting can transform people's care journeys, and the way that it reminds you about the ongoing toll of global conflict, civilian unrest, climate change and climate impact, because every consultation, what you're seeing a window into is what is happening across the globe, even though it's happening here.
And before we finish, is there anything else that you would like the members to know about all the work you're doing with workforce?
I think because I am Melbourne-based,
right.
So for anybody who's based in Melbourne, I am always happy to come and meet people. The Melbourne office is on St Kilda Road, and if you have an area that relates to workforce where you'd like to meet with me, or to understand, for example, the sort of data that we have within the college around the specialties, and I would say we are very well advanced. It's not a competition with the other college, but we are actually very well advanced in terms of seeing where people are, and we're building really great relationships across the sector. So please reach out to me if you have questions around workforce, and also the Research Foundation.
That's great. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for your time and fabulous insights into workforce.
Thank you.